Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacinho Tweets and at She Knows Arsenal. Welcome to just another random episode. I just thought I'd pop on quickly to kind of talk about All or Nothing and uh the episodes that were released last night, 4 through 6, and just kind of have like that general chit chat because later on today I want to do like the regular She Knows Arsenal daily where we just basically talk about transfers. But I wanted to give the All or Nothing episodes 4 through 6 their own kind of conversation because I do think that 1 through 3 was awesome. Like, I like any sort of Arsenal content, but I do think we got a better insight into the club, in particular, Mikel Arteta, who he really is, what he stands for, a little bit more about Adu and what he thinks, and really what happened during January, as well as the Aubameyang situation. So I do think we could spend a little bit of time, talking about this just by itself. If you guys are like, "Oh, Jess, I just want to hear about transfer news," fair enough. Come back at 6 p.m. Actually, sorry, 5 p.m. And we'll be talking about more of the transfer stuff then. There's about 50 of you guys on in here already. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Uh, yeah, so I told you guys the other day that I had a little bit of like a surprise. It's a small surprise, but I was featured on All or Nothing. The She Knows Arsenal YouTube channel was had a short little spot there when talking about Aubameyang. You saw me sitting there saying something like, "What? Sorry, what was the plan?" That was what I was saying, and it was awesome. I think Babs was on there as well as Roy Jennings was on there too. So it was kind of cool, like seeing the channel up there. I do have to say that I'm like, okay, so are they watching what I'm saying? Because if so, like maybe I need to clean it up. But you guys know I'm always going to give you the real, uncut, raw truth about how I'm feeling about Arsenal. So I'm not going to change my vibes now just because I think that Arsenal may have me on the radar, can see what I'm doing here. But, you know, it was, and thank you to everybody that was saying, congratulations. I do really appreciate it. Oh my gosh. So DJ Oni real can see now. Okay, so just to let you guys know, like I have kind of upgraded my situation. I will show you guys soon kind of like what I've done here, but I have like a new little ring light. I have a new webcam. It's the face cam from Elgato, which is much better than the one that I was using from Logitech, as well as like another ring light over here, clean background, and obviously my Yeti. So things should look better, sound better. I hope they do, but I do all this for you guys. Like you guys, if you guys have been here since the beginning, I was like in a little office, like just doing my thing. So trying to upgrade a little by little by little. But for the episodes 4 through 6, I do think that we really are getting a better feeling of who Arteta is as a manager. And I still think that there's a lot of narratives that are being debunked throughout this documentary. Now, I know some people will say, well, it's zhuzhed up. It's fake. I've seen some people say, oh, I like how they're portraying Arteta like this. It's really difficult to pretend you're somebody that you're not when you're being filmed 24/7. So I have a hard time believing that Arteta has time to chill there and say like, "Well, how do I want to be portrayed?" or whatever. And so I do think we're getting a good idea of who Arteta is as a manager. And in the beginning of episode 4, we see Arteta going in on the group after I think it was Nottingham Forest, or what game was it? It was a game where we played really bad. I think it was Nottingham Forest. And you know, you saw that he was getting upset about, the standard that was set in training, and that ultimately showed itself in a game where we were under difficult circumstances. And against Nottingham Forest in particular, I do think that you just saw the type of Arsenal that we don't like to see. Um, where we just look flat, we don't create any chances, we're just kind of out there going through the motions, and we lost, and we were out of the FA Cup. And I think that that was really difficult for a lot of Arsenal fans because we kind of look at that competition as Arsenal's competition. We think of the FA Cup as our cup. And to go out so early into a team in the championship, I know there was Charlie Patino. I know Nuno Tavares didn't have a good game. I know we didn't have a great attack out there, but I still saw Saka, I still saw Odegaard, I still saw Ben White. I saw enough players out there where I do think that we could have had a better performance. And I like that Arteta got stuck in. I like that Arteta, you know, rip them a new one because, at the end of those games, I think we all wish that we could stand in front of them and say, I can't believe you let me watch this bullshit. I can't believe you actually, I woke up or I took off work or whatever you do in order to watch Arsenal play. I traveled all the way over here to Nottingham Forest or whatever to watch you play like shit in those white kits. And those white kits were meant to be special, like, because they had a special message behind them and stuff like that. So, you know, I loved watching Arteta rip them. I did because there's this narrative out there that Arteta's soft, Arteta is a yes man, he just lets them do whatever, or he's a dictator or whatever. But ultimately, Arteta is just somebody that wants to create high standards in a winning environment at Arsenal. And there is a connection to the way that you train and the way that you play. And early on, one of the criticisms of Arteta was that he took training too seriously. He would, if you didn't train well, you didn't play, and if you trained well, you would play. And so maybe somebody like Willian maybe got too much rope because he trained better than maybe like a Pepe. But for most players, if you train well, it manifests itself on the pitch. And you saw that against Nottingham Forest that they were kind of, we're okay with losing duels in training. We're blaming this guy and this guy for a bad pass or a bad touch. And it just kind of unfolded there on that day. And so I love seeing that about Arteta. Rob Holding said that he's intense, and I think you can see that on the sideline. But that's what I want. Like, I want a team that takes everything really, really serious, like life or death. And I don't want them taking anything for granted. And I think this time around, when we're in those cup competitions and we have lower level opposition, no matter how good they are or how up for the game that they are, I hope that we would remember that game against Nottingham Forest and how disappointing it was, and remember that, like, Arsenal need to be performing well in those competitions regardless. DJ Oni says, I like the fact that he challenged the board. Yeah, we are going to, kind of talk about the Aubameyang situation in a second. High Tech J says, only at Arsenal could you be slated for being deathly serious in your profession. That dictator narrative was so tired. There are a lot of things that Arteta does that I feel like are very normal for a manager to do, and he's the only one that gets kind of flack for it. I do understand that it's kind of comes from the aspect of, well, he's a novice, so we don't trust anything that he's doing. So everything that he's doing is under huge scrutiny, but he's not really. I mean, he was here with Arsene. He played a long time under David Moyes, and he trained under Pep as well. So I don't think what he's doing is just like this madman thing and he's just like a narcissist and a dictator. He just wants high standards at the club, and I don't think that that's anything that we should be worried about. I do think that there is a question around like his how green he is and in the position. So, you know, are we getting the most that we could possibly get because he's so new? But I think the way that he's going about certain things, especially the requirements of the team out there on the pitch, are nothing different than what a Pep or a Moyes or anything would expect from their team. Sean says the board wanted Arteta to keep playing Abba, and Arteta said, no, I'm not going to. So he's not really a yes man. Exactly. He's not really a yes man. We'll talk about that in a sec. Robbie Lau says, we got half of our season against, we got half of our first team against Forest, and we played like that. That was the worst performance of the season. Yeah, it was up there. Yeah, that was up there. It was really disappointing, I think, because in January we went out of all the cups that we were in. You could kind of give the team a pass for going out against Liverpool, but against Nottingham Forest. And I know that they were playing really well, but we just weren't up for it. We weren't up for the physicality and the actual the battle, and that was the most disappointing of everything. And I look at that team still, and I think we could have at least registered more shots. We didn't have like a single shot on goal until like late in the second half. Um, Tony says, "We were all ripping them that night." Yes, I mean, there was just I just remember that just, like, seeing it again was like, yeah, they were so bad in that game. Ty Jr. says, John Terry would love to bond with his teammates' wives and girlfriends." Okay. Yo-Yo says, "The cup meant little to me than only because, that's not what I personally judge the manager on." What do you judge the manager on? Like, what is you know, your requirement for the manager? Cece, thank you so much for your super chat. I really appreciate it. Says onwards and upwards, Jess. Congrats on the feature. Talk Sport and Sky Sports next. Honest, articulate, knowledgeable. Love seeing you do so well. Thank you so much, Cece. You've been here for a while, and I love your commentary. You're always very honest as well on how you feel about Arsenal. So I'm glad that you enjoy the channel, and thank you so much for your super chat and your kind words. FTL Gunnar Craig says, Jess, you're an effing rock star. Watching now. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I have your thing here with me. So I do have it. I'm waiting for it to get kind of cooler out. But yeah, once it gets colder out, I'll wear this out. So thank you so much. And I really appreciate all your support. But yeah, it's make sure you guys like the video as well. That really helps the channel grow. Um, but yeah, it's just that game was so hard to rewatch, and I do think that out of all the games that we played and we lost, that was probably the worst one. But we also saw, the fallout of Aubameyang, and for me, I think that that was a real divisive conversation amongst the Arsenal fan base because he is probably one of the favorite Arsenal players of the Emirates era, in terms of like somebody that had that star quality that we had been missing. Um, we had the Van Persies, he left. We had Cesc Fabregas, and then there was kind of like this period of time where we lacked an out and out star. And Aubameyang came in January, and he's adapted to the Premier League so well, was on fire, the amount of goals that he was scoring in a really bad Arsenal side as well. Um, and so, you know, I do think that it was quite a divisive situation because a lot of Arsenal fans felt the team lacks goals, so we need to keep Aubameyang in that team. Um, and then there was another side of it that said, like nobody is bigger than the club. And if he's not following the rules that have been set by the club, especially as club captain, he needs to be moved on or not played or whatever. And they showed the Everton game. I think the Everton game was a huge turning point because that was the last time that we saw Aubameyang. And we also went into a good period. I would say after that, we lost to Manchester United. We lost to Everton. That was a really difficult loss. We played really bad against Everton as well. And then turned around and beat Southampton 3-0. And it was a real turning point, but it also started all the conversations around Aubameyang. The January transfer window opens. And yeah, it was rough. Like seeing it back was just like, okay, surely we're going to replace him. If we get rid of him, we're going to replace him, right? We're going to make sure that we bring somebody in. This team doesn't have enough goals in it. And a lot of people still blame the not getting into Champions League on January. I have to say that as much as I want to buy into the idea that there was not a single player that we could have bought in January and we needed to wait on our number one targets and just be thinking about the future, I do think if we would have thought about the present at that moment, our future would be better and more secure. And it just hurts a lot to see that, Kulusevski was offered to us in January and he's now at Spurs and playing really, really well. And I'm just like, Could that not have been the boost that we needed in January? What, we could have got him on a loan with an obligation to buy. This is the type of player that we're looking for now. A player that can play off of the right-hand side, that's left-footed, that can battle Bukayo Saka for his position. That's the exact type of player that we're looking for, and we had the opportunity to sign him in January, and we didn't. And Spurs got him, and ultimately him and Bentancur really boosted that team on. And you can say it's Son and Kane, but there's something about the team. Just, I think teams feel a boost when new players come in to underpin what they already have. And so, you look at that. You also look at, the situation with Bruno Guimaraes. Could we have not brought him in? Could that not have improved the team? Did it have to be Vlahovic or nothing? I don't know if I buy that, you guys. I don't know if I buy that. I do think that the club made a decision to look towards the summer, in the January window, to really get rid of a lot of the dead wood and kind of really skeleton crew the team. And I don't necessarily feel like that really helped us. I do think that we pretty much stayed the same, and the team ran out of gas at the end. Um, so getting rid of Aubameyang for me at the time was the right thing to do. If you weren't in the at the watching the channel at that time, I think that you have to draw a line, and the captaincy may not mean a lot to people, but it means a lot to me. Um, in terms of, I think you need to set the example. Never thought Aubameyang had a single, leadership bone in his body, but when he accepted the captaincy, he should have made some changes. And I think if he was late all the time, and then there was also some other, Arteta made a dossier or whatever, had like a big, folder full of his infringements or whatever, his misdemeanors or whatever they called it. And apparently there was more than just lateness. So, I do think that you needed to make an example out of Aubameyang and make sure that the young players understood that there was a standard that needed to be set at Arsenal. But at the same time, you need to bring somebody in. And I don't feel like it would have been bring in somebody in the project folds, and that was the only thing. I think that there were other things that we could have done, a loan or something like that could have just underpinned this team a little bit more and gave them the boost that they needed. I mean, ultimately, we lost out on top four off of the back of 2 points. That's, you know, maybe a goal against Burnley. You don't draw 0-0. You score one goal and you get 3 points and you're in the Champions League. It's fine margin. So I get what Arsenal was trying to, the narrative was, if we bring in somebody, it'll hurt our plans for the summer, and we need to make sure that we're looking out for the future of the club. But when you look at it and the types of players that we're looking at now to bring in, I just feel like there were other options beyond just Vlahovic. But yeah, like I asked on the All or Nothing documentary, what was the actual plan there? And as much as I like what the club is doing, I do feel like there was a mistake there. And seeing it back, I do just think like January was very detrimental to our entire season. We played well all the way up until March, and then once those players came back from international break, they just kind of fell apart from there. And those 3 games on the bounce that we lost were ultimately the nail in the coffin. Yo-Yo says the sacrificial lamb to usher in a new era. Desperately hope he doesn't return to the Prem. Yeah, I mean, there's talk of him going to Chelsea. Newsflash, I think that he would go to Chelsea. I don't feel like there's any sort of um loyalty there that would prevent him from taking a chance and going to Chelsea. I would prefer him to stay at Barcelona as well. I just don't really want our entire season to be about every single time Aubameyang scores a goal, we have to hear about it. But ultimately, if we've done enough and we're scoring goals, it won't matter what he's doing over there if he does end up at Chelsea. And that's my biggest thing, is that you only really talk about those types of things when what you're doing at the moment is not working. And so we had to hear about every single time Barcelona scored a goal when we weren't scoring, or Aubameyang scored a goal for Barcelona every time we weren't scoring goals. until like once Lacazette fell off that cliff, it came rushing right back. So I think with all of this, it's just a matter of like, do we have enough goals in our team? Are we secure? If he goes to Chelsea, we'll still kind of hear about it, but it won't hurt as much. But yeah, I'd prefer him to stay um, in the La Liga because I just don't want to even hear about it, to be honest. Lynn says, I got the impression that Aubameyang didn't like his training methods because after the Burnley game, Abba took the Mickey out of Arteta. DJ Oni says, when he was with us, he couldn't score anyway. Hakil says, Spurs also lost against teams they should have won. Let's not blame ourselves for not winning against Burnley. Um, I mean, it's just fine margins, but I do think that there is a huge difference between Arsenal as a Europa League team and Arsenal as a Champions League team. I do think it would have pushed the project forward. It would have gotten that level of, do you know, there's a lot of pressure on Arsenal right now. I think there'd be less pressure, not less pressure, but a different type of pressure, a more not backs against the wall pressure, but let's see what you can do pressure. Because if we were in Champions League, of course, I don't think anybody would think that we should be winning it. We would probably be just saying, okay, get out of the group stages and see what you can do in the knockouts or whatever. But now that we're still in Europa League, now there's pressure to win it. There's pressure to make sure that we qualify for the Champions League. There's a little bit of like a level of, is he the right guy? And I do think that reaching Champions League and being able to attack different problems, attack different benchmarks this season would have been better for Arteta than having to redo things where there's already a lot of scars. There's a lot of scars already in the FA Cup. There's a lot of scars from trying to get into the top four. There's already scars in trying to win the Europa League. So I just feel like it would have been better for Arsenal to obviously have been in the Champions League. And so because of those fine margins, I do think you tend to play it over in your mind and say, what was the reason why we didn't get it? What's the reason why we didn't, meet our targets? And ultimately, I do think January played a big part. And I think a lot of Arsenal fans feel that way. And but I hear you. Spurs did lose to teams that they weren't supposed to, but they made Champions League and we didn't. And you have to kind of analyze that at the end of the day. Or at least that's what I do. I try to see, how do I really feel? Um, and I do feel like we needed something just a little bit more in January. DJ Oni says, I prefer that we are in the Europa League than Champions League. We're not a Champions League team yet. I don't want us to get embarrassed by Champions League teams. I don't agree with that. I respect your opinion, but I don't agree with that. I think we're not a Champions League team. Who was it? I think it was Eddie Howe, or one of the managers last season was saying that, they needed to prepare for us because we were a Champions League level team. For the majority of last season, we played like a Champions League team. 2 points separated us from being a Champions League team or not. So with margins that fine, I don't actually feel like we can sit here and say that we couldn't compete in the Champions League. Will we win it? No. But the money and the notoriety, getting back to the stage that you're supposed to be playing at, I think would have been beneficial for this group. I think it would have been better for our recruitment as well. So embarrassed by Champions League level teams. I mean, I don't actually feel like all the teams that we would have played would have embarrassed us. We know the strength of the Premier League is something serious, so I don't really buy this idea that we would just get killed in the Champions League and that would be it. Will we win it? No, but I'd prefer to go out of the round of 16 of the Champions League than get to the final of the Europa League and lose. That's where I'm at. So, but yeah, we got to see kind of what the fallout of the Aubameyang situation was. For me, the most, and you guys have already kind of touched on it, the most enlightening part of that was when they asked, is it easy for you to back um Arteta in this decision? And Adu said no. And I love that honesty, because for the club, they're probably like, gosh, can't you just work with him? Can't you just use him? And that's why Arteta had to have something to back him up. I think he felt like this moment might come, And he knew that he needed more than just one infringement to back his feeling that we needed to get rid of Aubameyang mid-season when we're fighting for Champions League. That's a huge show of faith from the board to give Arteta that respect and get rid of our captain and top goal scorer and most important player mid-season. So he needed the receipts. He needed the receipts in order to come to them. But I love that Adu didn't just do the, well, of course we have to back the manager and it's da 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 and we're all together. He said, no, it's not easy for me to back Arteta in this situation. And like you guys said, it shows that Arteta's not a yes man, but there's also a difference of opinion between the board and they work through those situations. And a difference doesn't mean hatred or anything like that. It's just there's people that have difference of opinions. And I think maybe some of the board was probably like, damn, shouldn't we just work with this guy and see what we can do or get to the end of the season. And they said, like, it was really difficult. It went all the way up until the last minute of the January transfer window to get him to Barcelona, and in a circumstance that doesn't leave us with him coming back to us in 6 months, you know, like that was insane. Of course, I would have preferred to be watching, excuse me, the transfer team working on an incoming, up until all night on deadline day. But it was kind of interesting to see what that process looked like and also realizing that Aubameyang left without anybody really knowing and to push the move, which is really embarrassing, I think, for the club when it was happening. A lot of people were like, it's done, it's done, it's done. But it was nowhere near done because Barcelona hadn't offered anything. And he just went out there to kind of force the move. Of course, like the people around him were trying to say, well, his family is out here. And then, of course, Adu goes with the line of like, oh, so we just live in Disneyland World, which is basically him saying, like, so you think I'm Boo Boo the Fool? Like, I don't know if you guys have that saying, but basically, like, you think I'm Boo Boo the Fool basically means so you think I'm stupid, you know? And so that's essentially what Adu was saying when Aubameyang's agent or whoever it was out there talking about, oh, he's visiting his family. No, he's trying to force a move and he's making it very embarrassing and public, which is something that Aubameyang does. He's forced his way out of clubs before by doing things in the light, and airing the dirty laundry. So, yeah, it was a very difficult thing to watch. I did see that there were some Arsenal fans that were like, why didn't they show Aubameyang's side of the story? It's because it's not Aubameyang's documentary. That just goes back to the overall overarching point is that nobody is bigger than the club. And so the idea that we would sit down with Aubameyang and give him a chance to say his part just I think speaks to like it's not about Aubameyang, it's about Arsenal. You heard Arsenal's side, and if you want to hear Aubameyang's side, then ask him, but I didn't feel like I needed to hear Aubameyang's side. I really didn't feel that way. You guys can let me know in the chat if you felt like you would have preferred to hear Aubameyang's side. He's talking to somebody in his car about what's gone on and all that kind of stuff. And you could just tell when he was doing those alone sessions that there was just a level of like not looking in people's eyes, just kind of, you could tell he was over it. He was done. And he's not a finished player in terms of like what he can do. He apparently has not declined and has played very well for Barcelona, but at Arsenal he just wasn't happy. And an unhappy Aubameyang is basically like having Yaya Sanogo out there on your team, because he won't finish. So yeah, it was interesting seeing that, but the fallout for that, it was cool to see just how things really worked out there and get some more insight. And Arteta was very frank and honest. And you can see that even when things are going on behind the scenes, he has to go out there and train those boys as if there's nothing going on. And I think it's very stressful. It's a very stressful situation to be in. And that's why they get paid the big bucks. I loved seeing his wife speak about, how he doesn't sleep, this is his life. They want him in, they want him out, they want him dead. and how she has to constantly remind him that there's a life outside of this, and that he's, you know, after 20 years, it's an evolution, and obviously she's proud of him, but she knows that this is like a very difficult job to have. So, it's just nice to see how they are. We saw Granite with his family as well, how they are outside, and like just humanizes them a lot more. And I hope that this makes people think twice about what they say online about some of the players in Arteta, because even if you hate them and you want them out, you want them sold, it's just not okay to abuse them, to abuse their families. These are people, they're trying to do their job, and even if you think, they're not doing a good job, it's no right, to abuse them. And I was going to ask you guys as well, did you see that Xhaka was saying that he wanted to be able to invite fans to training, to see how hard they work and stuff like that. And it'd be difficult. I think it'd be a difficult thing to do. But would you guys think that that's a good idea or no? Because I know that he said in the past that he preferred, playing in Germany sometimes because the fans could come up to training and they could just say how they felt, about what they were doing, and they would just kind of say their piece and then move on. You even saw him, driving and telling people to shut up, that were abusing him or saying mean things to him. So, do you think that would be helpful or just kind of like whatever? Because personally, I look at it, I just think to myself, like, you know, I don't really feel like that would be super helpful. I mean, I would love to see training, but ultimately, if you're not winning the games, people don't care about how hard you work. Arsenal fans at the end of the day, I think mostly, um, we all want to see that they're playing for the badge. And I think, there has been an idea that they don't give a shit, and you can tell that they really do. But if you're not winning, I don't think people really care what you're doing at training, you know what I mean? But yeah, yeah. Ty says, "That's a brilliant idea." Jermaine says, "What episode?" Wait, what episode is that on? Um, well, that was in an interview, Xhaka talking about wanting to have fans come to trainings. That was in an interview that he did the other day. Um, let's see. Ken says, "Great show, Jess. Thank you so much." Don One says, "Chelsea buying Arsenal rejects, how the have turned." Hakeem says, "We need to see fans square up with the players, to be honest." I mean, I just don't know if that's gonna help. I just feel like we all need to have like, I think they need to accept, and I think for the most part that they do, that Arsenal fans are not gonna be happy if we're losing games and we're not progressing. I think they just have to understand that there's gonna be banter out there, people are gonna say you played shit, and that's always happened from the beginning of the time. It's just happening online where they can see it and not behind closed doors at bars and pubs and things like that. And then fans need to understand where the line is between criticism, critique, and abuse and hate. Um, if we can all understand that fans are going to be fans, but you don't have to abuse the player, then I think we're all in a good place, because I think it's unrealistic to expect fans, and I don't think they have this expectation, but I've even seen it kind of creep into the Arsenal fan base that even critiquing a player is considered abuse. And there just has to be somewhat of a line there. There has to be some, understanding there. And I don't necessarily feel like I need to see you train to feel like you're playing for the badge. But equally, even if you're playing for the badge and you're playing shit, I'm going to say it, So there you go. There you go. Noel says, "Very nice clip." Colombian Spy says, "If Tielemans scores against us on Saturday, he's a snake." Lynn says, "I thought for me with Xhaka and his personality, you can tell he has total respect for Mikel." I mean, I think he's first guy on the team sheet. You know, that's Arteta's guy, his lieutenant, his soldier. Maybe he sees a little bit of himself in Granite. I do think that it's not that Granite is growing on me. It's just I'm more, I think, accepting of the idea that he's not going anywhere and he's much better than I used to give him credit for. And as long as Arsenal are okay with upgrading that midfield, and he said he wants the pressure. So bring in somebody and put some pressure on him, you know. Um I'm kind of okay with it. Um because I do think Granite would be a good squad player or a good option or whatever like that. I don't want him to I don't want to kick him out the door. I just want to see more options in midfield that kind of bring up the level of that group. Um, but getting to know Granite a little bit more after all these interviews, because he tends to do a lot of interviews, and seeing more clips of him and not just being like, oh, I want him gone, but actually absorbing what he's saying. I do think that he works really hard. He plays for the badge. He sometimes could overdo it, and get the cards. And he's unapologetic about that, which is kind of annoying. But ultimately, like, he's that friend that comes over when he wasn't invited and stays all night, wears your clothes, eats your food, drinks your water, and overstays his welcome and then leaves, but you still love him. And that's just kind of what it is. That's where he's at. That's where he's at with me. BX Gunner says today's fans are mental basket cases. Rotimi says Arteta is not a hater. All he wants is best for his players. Yeah, I think he does. I think he does just want, best for his players. And he wants to be the best. So yeah. DJ Oni says, I don't care about hearing his side. I feel let down by his attitude. Good riddance. Um, the Mr. Arsenal podcast says, you could tell when Abba was dropped and made to train alone. He just tapped out and refused to show any fight. And his teammates' behavior on deadline day was disgusting. Yeah, it was just, I just think that it came to the end of the road, with Aubameyang. And yeah, if another manager was there that he really liked and got along with, he might have been just fine. But him and Arteta just did not get along, and sometimes that happens, and you just have to accept it. I feel like I'm over it. Some people never got over it, but I care more about Arsenal than I care about Aubameyang. It's never player FC for me. It's no player for me is bigger than what Arsenal is trying to do. And I thought when Aubameyang was out of the team, we actually played a lot better. And so, do I still think we should have brought in another player? Probably, but ultimately, I do feel like I'm on the side that it was the right thing to do, to move him on. So there's 207 of you guys in here. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Ken O says, granted as a fighter, but he's not dynamic enough. We need an upgrade. The Mr. Arsenal podcast says, love to dude's response to Abba's rep, though. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we are in Disneyland World. I mean, it was just, I love seeing their personalities a little bit more, because I do think people look at Arsenal, they think they're soft. And no, I think Adu he has the type of personality where he smiles and all that kind of stuff, but everything he does is with a certain intention. He wants to give 110%. Sometimes he gets it wrong, sometimes he gets it right. But I like seeing that, Arsenal are telling people okay, so you think I'm stupid. We want this. You need to take him, not on a loan, but you need to take him and it's going to be permanent and you need to take all these wages. I like that. And I also like that you're seeing similar move with Bellerin. Maybe ultimately in the end we end up canceling his contract, but I do think Betis need to go ahead and pay for him. Give us a couple of million. You're not just going to get him for free. And so that's what you kind of want to see, from your DOF. Let's see. What else are you guys saying? Damon says no player is bigger than the club. I agree. Bilal says they could do a training session at the Emirates and let fans, but London Colony, I think would be hard. Yeah, I mean, if they do a training session at the Emirates, that would be great. But I don't need to see them training to know that they're giving 110%. I can tell when they're giving it their all. Against Nottingham Forest, they were so bad, and you could just tell that they were just terrible, and so at that point you wanted to slap them. But against City, they gave it all, even though they lost. Against Liverpool, they gave all. You could just tell. I don't need to see training to know whether or not they're giving it all. You could tell. There was only a couple of games last season where I really looked at it and I said, they are actually just wasting my whole time. Maybe 2 or 3 instances last season. Every other time I felt like if we lost, it was just because we were off that day. And sometimes the players can give all they can give on the day and still get beat. I think some fans forget that. DJ Oni says, "We weren't sure about Adu, but I'm sure in the last year he's beginning to change our minds about him." I think we're starting to see more of what he can do, and that's a good thing. Still want to finish out this window strong. We'll be talking about more of the transfer news a little bit later on the next show. But yeah, he started off this window strong. The last window was strong. The window before that I thought was pretty good besides Willian, so I do think Adu is doing a lot better. Yo-Yo says, "You let the football do the talking, never cared about the board hierarchy, dressing room dynamics, etc. until the football stinks." Exactly. Damon says, "Adu and Arteta are great for the club. At the moment, mistakes will be made, but learning from it is key, and I can see both men are learning from past mistakes." Exactly. So, let's see, what else? They also showed us, um what else did they show us? They showed us the game against, Wolves. They showed us, yeah, and Aston Villa as well, and I think that that was kind of, like, towards the end of our good run. Um, we did the 2 games against Wolves where seeing the Martinelli red card again just irritated the crap out of me because, like, it's like, you look at it again and you're like, "He had to really wanna do that." He had to really wanna do that, to give him the red card, and I thought that was absolute silliness. But I remember watching that game and think that I was seeing a team that had a lot more resilience about them and a lot more fight and a lot more gamesmanship, and we didn't score enough goals last season, but what I did see that I felt like I haven't really seen in the past is the fight, in the team, regardless of what's going on, whether you're down a man, whether you're at a difficult away ground, where I saw players really get stuck in and do the hard yards and defend well. And a lot of those defensive principles, you guys, came from when Arteta first got here, when a lot of people were very disappointed in the way that we were playing, because we weren't playing arson ball. We weren't a free flowing attacking side. Um, we were very quite defensive and rigid when Arteta first came in, but you see those same kind of principles of, the distances and the lines and, our defensive compactness and how we defend in groups and, our positioning and, things like that. Once the defenders got better, the defending got better. When it wasn't Mustafi or Socrates and it was Ben White, and Gabrielle, it got better. And so against Wolves, we were away from home, and there's going to be a lot of games like this season as well. Unless you're Manchester City or Liverpool, I think the games against the middle away from home are difficult. I do. Um, you think about Aston Villa, Wolves, Brighton, um, those games are really hard. And so Arsenal need to be able to replicate what they did against Aston Villa and Wolves. And they also need to figure out how to do what we did against Wolves at home a lot more this season. Coming from behind and not being able to do that very often or at all, only one time last season, I do think was a huge problem. We should be able to go down and feel confident that we can get back up. We really should. And last season that was a problem, and I do think some of it was like we knew that we didn't have a lot of goals in us, and then when you look up the pitch and you see Lacazette and he's struggling, you're thinking we don't have any goals in us, it's done. But hopefully looking at Gabriel Jesus and Martinelli and Saka, up there will give us more of a feeling like even if we go down a goal, we can come back. And so seeing those games again, I remember how I felt. I remember how I felt about the first game against Wolves, where I thought, it was very much like F you, like um, you pricks and all that kind of stuff. It was great seeing Wolves be so bitter about us winning that game. And then playing Wolves again just 2 weeks later, I remember Gabriel and his mistake. And I like what Arteta said, like, we have to help him now. We have to help him now. And I think not blaming your teammate for making a mistake, which happens, like in football, it happens, and knowing that, okay, now we have to bail him out. You have to help him. Um, like I like that Arteta said that, and coming back from behind in that game, I thought was great. We have to figure out a way to do it more, and hopefully, we can. But And this is, I think, the biggest thing that I got from All or Nothing ultimately is watching it back. I remember how I felt in the moment. And even though there's a lot of people that feel like none of this matters because we didn't get into the Champions League, it's all for nothing. You want moments, like sometimes football is about moments and how you felt in the moment. Of course, in the entirety of the season, when you get to the end of it, that's all that matters is how do I feel now and where did we finish? But in the moment, when you have those moments where, you go down a man and you're playing against a difficult team away from home and you nick it 1-0, it's great. It's a great feeling. And you watch the team celebrate when are playing at home and you're in stoppage time and you win the game coming back from behind. It's a great moment. You remember that. When you're playing against Aston Villa and Leno makes a save in stoppage time and that's the last kick of the game and you win the game, that's amazing. And so I do think we get very caught up in like, okay, well, I don't want to see it. I don't care about it because it doesn't come to anything. But just remembering those moments back, I just hope that in this season we have a lot more of those moments where the team comes back from behind and has those difficult wins and we have those magical moments and remember how we felt when it happened in the moment and not always just only think about, well, we didn't make Champions League, so none of this matters. The moments matter. And I actually there was a lot of times last season where I really did um, enjoy some of the things that we did and some of the moments that we had. Yeah, so that's kind of like my takeaway from it. But I know like the season was very much an emotional roller coaster. But between December and March, you guys, I'm not gonna lie, that was some of the best times that I've had as an Arsenal fan in probably like the last 5 years because I actually liked the team. I knew they were playing for the badge. We were playing some good football. We had to suffer through Lacazette a little bit, and it wasn't perfect, but I did enjoy watching them grow as a team. And so when people say things like, I haven't seen any improvement from this team, it's basically the same. I just think you're not really watching or you just don't want to admit that we're watching a team that's growing before our eyes. We're watching a manager that's growing before our eyes as well. And savor the moments. Savor the moments. That's all I'm gonna say. Because most teams throughout a season don't win anything. And I just enjoyed some of it. I just enjoyed some of those moments and seeing it back, I was like, yeah, that felt good. But Nottingham Forest, that was horrible. That was horrible. I felt sick to my stomach after that game. Arsenio says, let's keep the faith in this team. If we start turning on them, what chance have we got if we don't believe in them? Us as the fans have a duty also to bring them up, not kick them down. Yo-Yo says, every brick matters to build a wall. How high will the wall be at the end is the question, and how long will it take is the other. Fair enough. Mikey says, that's it, Jess. We'll we'll have drinks with mates and I watch the game tomorrow. Happy days. Matthew says, I care more about the journey than the destination. Will support the club through and through and times and enjoy the happy moments. Yeah, I mean, you think about it, like that's why trophies matter so much and why I mean, it sounds so simple to say, but trophies really do matter at the end of the day because those are the moments that you remember. You don't remember the times that you've finished fourth. You don't. Like at the end of the day, you don't care about that. It's not a trophy. And I think we spent a way too long of a time um acting like it was. I remember how I felt when we won the FA Cup with Arteta in this first season. More than anything. I remember where I was. I remember what I ate. I remember how I felt. I remember how I was literally like on my knees, hands like this, like watching that extra time and watching like just all of it unfold. I remember how it felt when Pulisic's goal went in. I remember how it felt when Aubameyang's goal went in. I remember what it felt like when Pepe scored the goal that was offside. I remember every single thing. I remember when Kovacic got the red card and I thought, yes, we're in it. We're doing it. And so those are the moments that really matter. And I hope that Arsenal really have more of those moments this season. I'd love to win a trophy more than anything, whether it be the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup or the Europa League or something, because that's what you really remember. Like that's what you really remember, not we made top four. Of course I want to make top four, but I just want more moments, because that's why we're here. We remember the moments more than anything. Dalasu says there are certain people who refuse to see progress that the team is making. Arteta is not building a team for now, but trying to build to put structures in place for sustained future success. Um, yeah, I agree with that. I think the only thing is now is that Arsenal are different than other clubs and like there's a pressure to get back up to the top, and things like that. So you have to be moving at a certain pace. And that's why I do feel like if we had gotten just one more win and had qualified for Champions League, then it wouldn't have alleviated the pressure, but it would have given that stamp of like, okay, we're 100% moving in the right direction. We can move forward. But, I do kind of agree that like we're thinking about the future and we're building those bricks. And I saw the list of the Premier League teams, we will again be the youngest team in the Premier League again. But when you look at all of our competition for top four, they are all like way below us in terms of squad age. And so we are, you know, looking at the future. I still think there needs to be focus on the present, but I do think we're building something kind of strong for the future as well, as long as we can keep it all together, you know? Um, Clement says, one thing I want to see this year is Arsenal players have discipline along with composure in games. So one of the things I loved about what Arteta said, I wish somebody would have clipped it because it's the most important thing in football. It's the reason why we can watch a game and feel like somebody else deserved to win it, but somebody else walks away with 3 points. It's because in a lot of the games last season, including Manchester City at home and Liverpool at home, we were the better team in the middle of the pitch, center circle, middle of the pitch. But they were better in both boxes. And that's where the game is won and lost. That's where trophies are won and lost, you know? And I mean, you can even look at like Real Madrid versus Manchester City in the Champions League semifinal. And I think Manchester City won in between the boxes, but in those boxes, Real Madrid was superior to them. And so, for me, I do want to see more of that clinical finishing and less of the bonehead mistakes in the back, not giving away silly passes back there. I think Ramsdale really needs to clean his act up. Ramsdale, who I love to death, I think invites that nervousness back there. Once he makes one of those mistakes, it's a ripple effect throughout the team. We start to panic. That panic starts to set in. But yeah, I agree with you. More discipline, less red cards, less silly fouls given away, a lot more, just be a lot smarter because you've been there and done that before. So yeah, I think because the game is won in those two boxes, won and lost in those boxes, we need to be better in those two boxes, not only with our composure in finishing, but our composure when defending and not making silly mistakes that ultimately cost us. Um, Lynn says, Jess, I know it was preseason, but winning the Emirates Cup I thought was great. Anytime you win something, it feels good. Anytime you win something, it feels good. I like when we won the Community Shield. Sue me. Kafuso says, man, we only sound rational when we're winning. Adu's been saying trust the process when we were down and he was scoffed at. It's hard. It's hard. Even I have like super difficult times when we're not playing well to hold I was definitely somebody that was very on the edge several times last season with Arteta and the whole thing. I wanted to just like January was not a good time for me, not a good time on the channel. I was not a happy girl. So yeah, I think sometimes you have to maybe try to remember how you felt when we were winning, when we were losing, and make sure that you're thinking from a rational perspective. But fans are reactionary. That's what we do. We react. Um, we react to results, we react to everything, so I think it's almost like not in our nature to not just react to how we feel in the moment. And there was plenty of people in that documentary that I think echoed a lot of our thoughts, which is at the beginning of the season, we didn't know where we were going, and it flip-flops all the time based on when we're losing, it's Arteta out, when we're winning, it's Arteta in, and it just keeps going back and forth because there's still a lot of people that don't trust the process. And so I think it's just something that until we actually reach where we wanna be, there's gonna be still questions there. That's the reality. Yo-Yo says actions and speech um, must always align, otherwise you lost trust. That's just the rule in life, let alone PR and marketing. Um, the Pello says, even if Arteta were to leave the club, he would have left us a foundation that could sustain us for 3 or 4 seasons. I agree. I agree. I think there would be more managers that would be willing to come into this project now than would have when Arteta came in. So we're gonna end it there, you guys, because we've been going for about an hour. I need to go to the gym. And then I'll come back later and we'll talk just purely, transfers, and what's going on. I know you guys probably want to talk about, Simon Collins just come out with an article that says that, now Leicester are willing to take the 25 million for Yuri Tielemans, but Arsenal are unlikely to bring in a winger and a midfielder. So we'll talk about that. And we'll also talk about like what's going on with outgoings and everything, so make sure you keep your eyes peeled for that. That'll be around maybe 5 p.m. or something, UK time. But as I always say, this is the best part of my day. Always keeps me like even feeling normal, hanging out with you guys. Thank you everybody for the congratulations on, featuring an All or Nothing or just a little clip of She Knows Arsenal being added into it. It's just amazing, to even be included at all. And I would have never gotten the opportunity if you guys didn't follow this channel. If this channel didn't get the views and didn't get the likes and didn't get shared, nobody would know about it. So thank you guys so much. It's all because of you guys. And so, yeah, I look forward to hanging out with you guys in a couple hours. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this with a friend, and I will see you guys in a little bit. Bye, y'all.